I've made a lot of mistakes throughout the past 6 years of my piano learning journey, and without a doubt, these mistakes have made my piano journey much more difficult than it should have actually been. And that's exactly why in this video I'll be sharing with you about 5 of these mistakes so you won't have to make them yourself, especially if you're a beginner. So without wasting your time, let's get into it. Now the first mistake I made, which I highly recommend you avoid as a beginner, is actually not following a well-structured curriculum or guideline. Now, a lot of people might think this is actually not important. Maybe you can just go on YouTube and watch a lot of random tutorials and you'll be completely fine. But I'm going to prove to you why this is super important, especially at the start. Now, the reason why this is super important is because of the concept of prerequisite knowledge when acquiring any form of education, of which piano learning is not exempted from. Meaning there are some set of topics you need to cover first before proceeding to another one. Okay? And if you skip the prerequisite topic, you might have problem with understanding the next topic. Okay, for example, bringing into the piano, you can't learn chord progressions without first understanding what we mean by chords. Okay, that is knowing how to play and build chords. If you just jump to chord progression and you skip chords, you might have difficulty with understanding progressions because you don't know how to build your basic chords. So how can you combine those chords to form chord progressions? For instance, another example, you can't learn scales without first learning intervals. There are some things you need to learn first that will naturally lead you to another topic or make it easier for you to understand another topic. And when you skip this learning process, you might find it difficult as you proceed from one topic to another, okay? So to kind of solve this problem for you, I created a very simple summary hint or guideline that you can follow as a beginner. Now, I know it might not be exactly to detail, but if you follow this simple curriculum or guideline, is going to actually make your learning process much more easier than just watching random tutorials on YouTube. So the next tip I have for you is a simple trick that I've learned over the years that's helped me to be able to play chords without thinking much. That is a trick that helped me to memorize chords faster. So the secret I've learned is one of the tricks to playing chords faster without thinking much is actually focus more on the shape your hands take when playing that particular chord instead of the notes that make up the chord. For example, if I want to play C major chord and its inversions, instead of thinking about C, E, and G before playing the chord, all I just need to focus on is the shape my hands take whenever I'm playing the chord. That is this, okay? Or maybe something like this, just depending on the way you play the chord. Also, for example, if I want to play the first inversion of this particular chord, I already know the shape my hands take whenever I want to play first inversion of chords. That is something like this, okay? You can see the way my hands are shaped. That is, I know that my pinky, that is my last finger, is actually farther apart from these two notes. Okay, so you can see the space between these two notes is smaller than this. So this is the way I position my hands whenever I want to play first inversion of most chords. Okay, so something like this, you see. And you can see I've already played the C major chord first inversion. Instead of thinking about the notes that make up the chord, I just focus on the shape my hands take, and it was faster. So this shape is actually roughly true for other chords also. Okay, I can use the same shape to play the first inversion of other chords. Okay, I can use the same shape to play G major chord first inversion. You can see this using the same shape without even thinking of the notes. I can play F sharp first inversion. You can see this. I can play G sharp major chord first inversion using this same shape. Okay, and that's actually the advantage of thinking about the shape your fingers take when playing that particular chord instead of the notes that make up the chord, because just by knowing one shape of one chord type, irrespective of the key signature of that particular chord, the shape will still work. So for example, back to C major chord, this is the root position. If I want to play the second inversion, I also know the way I'm going to position my fingers. Okay, so remember the first inversion, this is the way I position my fingers to play it. Okay, but the second inversion, this is the way I used to position my fingers. You can see the shape my hands take whenever I want to play the second inversion. So I don't need to think about the notes that make up the chord, just the shape my hands take whenever I'm playing that particular chord. And I can still use the same shape to go to any key. This is C sharp, second inversion. You see that? It still works. This is G sharp, second inversion. Okay, this is A, second inversion. Okay, and in my own opinion, this will help you to memorize chord faster than actually memorizing the notes that make up those chords. Now, I just picked the C major chord, but it's actually true for most other chords also, okay? For example, let's say in the left hand, this is C power chord, okay? Most time, this is the way, chord I play on my left hand. That is C, G, and C. That is root plus fifth plus root, okay? So whenever I want to play a power chord on my left hand, this is the shape my hands take. So you can see this. This is the shape my hands take. You can see the way my fingers are spaced. Okay. I'm already used to the shape. Instead of thinking about the note that make up the chord that I want to play, I already know how I'm going to position my hands whenever I want to play a power chord, something like this. Okay, so this is C power chord. I can use this same shape to play the power chord of F. Okay, so you can see my left hand, this same shape. Okay, you see? So in summary, what I'm saying in essence is that every particular chord type on the piano have a specific shape that your hands take whenever you're playing that particular chord. Okay, and this is because every chord type have a specific way the notes of that particular chord are spaced apart, okay, or distributed across the piano. So instead of thinking about the notes that make up the chord, focus more on the shape that your hands take when you're playing that particular chord. It will save you a whole lot of time of having to memorize the notes that make up those chords. Okay. So the next important lesson I've learned over the past 6 years of playing the piano is actually don't try to learn all the 12 keys on the piano at the same time. Okay. Don't try to master all the 12 keys on the piano simultaneously. Okay. It's best to take it one key at a time. Okay. That is, you have to be intentional about a single key before you then proceed to another key. Okay. Learn the diatonic scale, the diatonic chords, the inversions of the diatonic chords on one particular key first before you then proceed to other keys. I remember when I first started out on the piano, I used to try to play the diatonic scales, the diatonic chords, and a lot of songs on multiple keys at the same time. Okay. And one thing I noticed is that this particular approach actually slowed down my progress for a very long time. But when I started taking it one key at a time, I'll just pick one key, I'll try and practice the diatonic scale, the diatonic chords, and play some couple of songs on that particular key, okay, for a complete month or thereabouts. When I started using this approach, I noticed I started improving significantly. So in summary, don't try to learn all the 12 keys at a stretch. That could be quite overwhelming for your brain to assimilate, especially very beginner, okay? Just take it one key at a time. Learn the diatonic scale, diatonic chords, and all the technicality of one key before you then proceed to another key. Use this approach and thank me later. Now, the next tip I have for you is actually a simple secret I've learned over the years related to hand coordination. Okay, using both hands is actually one of the greatest challenges a lot of beginners face while learning the piano, and I equally faced this challenge when I first started out on piano. But one secret I've learned about hand coordination is that whenever you are meant to play any musical piece with both hands, try practicing each hand separately first before you then combine both. And also, when combining both hands together, one thing I've also learned over the years is that you should focus more on the hand that is doing the most work. Okay. So let me explain what I'm saying using this popular song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. For example, if I should play this song using both hands like this, so you can see while using both hands, you notice that my right hand was doing more work than the left hand, because the right hand I'm playing the various melodic line, while on my left hand I was just playing the basic progression. Okay. So what I'm saying is that whenever you're using both hands together, one thing I've learned is that you should focus more on the hand that is doing more work. So in this case, I think my right hand is doing more work compared to my left hand. So my attention is more on my right hand while using both hands. Okay. And what I've learned is that while you are focusing more on the hand that is doing more work, the hand that is doing less work will automatically or subconsciously be doing the right thing, compared to when you are trying to focus on both hands at the same time. You might get confused. So your attention should be more on the hand that is doing the most work. I'm not saying you should not also focus on your left hand, but what I've learned over the years is that your attention should be more on the hand that is doing the most work. And the hand that is doing the less work will subconsciously follow up accordingly. So just as a bonus tip, let me give you 3 simple exercises that I used to practice back then as a beginner that helped me to be able to build my hand coordination skills. Okay. So the first one is the simple 5-finger exercise, something like this. Okay. So you can just do something like this to get your muscles excited. And with time, you can now upgrade to something like this. And then with time, you can descend, something like this. So once you've mastered this, the next exercise you can practice is something like this. So what I did, so on my left hand, I'm just playing the 1, 4, okay, 1, 5 progression, but I'm using arpeggio, something like this. Okay, something like this. So instead of playing the 1 as it is, I break it down. Then I go to the 4, which is this. I break it down. Then I go back to the 1. Then the 5. Okay, but on the right hand, you can play this melodic line, something like this. Okay, so you then combine both. So in summary, what I'm saying in essence is that one of the secrets I've learned over the years to hand coordination is that whenever you're meant to play any musical piece with both hands, you try practicing each hand separately first before you then combine both. And also when you're combining both, I've learned that you should prioritize focusing more on the hand that is doing the most work, and the hand that is doing less work we subconsciously follow up. Now the last tip I have for you today is actually related to mastering chord progressions by ear. Now this is something I keep emphasizing all the time in most of my previous videos, and I will keep emphasizing it because this is actually something that have actually helped me as a person to master chord progressions by ear. Now one of the secrets I've learned over the years to mastering chord progressions by ear is when your ears can identify each of the unique sound of all the 7 diatonic chords in a certain key. For example, in the key of G, this is the chord 1, okay? This is the chord 2, this is the chord 3, this is the chord 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1, okay? So what this means is that all these 7 diatonic chords I just played right now, the chord 1 to chord 7, have a specific way each of them sound relative to the tonic, okay? And the tonic is the chord 1. And once you can train your ears to recognize how each of these chords sound, no matter how the chords are combined to form a chord progression of a particular song, you'll be able to tell the chord progression of that song. Because remember, most popular chord progression uses one or more of these 7 diatonic chords, but just in different combination. So that implies that once you can recognize how each of them sound whenever they are played, no matter how they are combined in a particular song to form the progression of that song, you'll be able to tell the chord progression of that particular song by hearing, because you already know how each of the diatonic chords sound uniquely. So for example, if I play 3 diatonic chords, can you tell what order or sequence of chords I played? Okay, for example, something like this. So I just played 3 diatonic chords right now. Can you tell what order of diatonic chords I just played just by hearing them? Okay. So for example, what I played was the chord 1, the chord 4, and the chord 6. Okay. So you understand what I'm saying right now. Once your ears can tell how each of the chords sound, no matter how they are combined to form the progression of any song, you'll be able to tell the chord progression of that song just by hearing. So in summary, focus your energy more on training your ears to recognize each of the 7 diatonic chords, because that will help you to master chord progressions by ear. In case you're asking yourself how you can train your ears, I've made some ear training exercises in the past that would actually help you to master each of these diatonic chords by ear. I'll leave them in the description box below. You can go check it out later on after watching the video. However, I still plan on making more diatonic ear training exercises in future videos that will help you to master each of these chords by ear. So these are just some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the past 6 years of playing the piano. So if you find value from this video, do it to like the video and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so. And we'll see you in our next video.